Thank you, Carol. And good morning, everybody. The lights are bright, but I know there are people out there, and this is quite a large number of people to wake up to have breakfast with. My breakfasts are usually a little more intimate, so it's nice to be with you. We have a wonderful panel, and we're going to have a conversation among all of them. To get us started, I want to frame the conversation in true Achieving the Dream style with a little data about the landscape of opportunity and mobility in the United States and the challenges that we face, we in community colleges, to reignite, catalyze, and frankly re-engineer the infrastructure of upward mobility and opportunity in this country. So let's see if the slides will appear magically or I have to push something. I want to start with just the question, is America still the land of opportunity? And if that question gets a bit of a questionable answer, the subtitle really ought to be, and if it isn't, what it needs to be. What is the role of community colleges in strengthening the pathways through which people can rise from the bottom of the income distribution to a better place of opportunity and financial and life security? I'm told if I press that something's going to happen, but I'm not sure it did. So I'm prepared to talk, let's see, without the benefit of visual aids. There is in this country a growing problem of opportunity and mobility. I think we all have heard a great deal that income, particularly for people in the lower ranks of the income distribution, lower than the very top, have not experienced real income growth, and that the opportunities of people to move from one quintile of the income distribution to another appear to be slowing. Some of this is due to the fact that people at the very top are earning at very high levels. But our former Secretary of Labor, talking about rising income inequality in the United States, made a very revealing comment. He said inequality would not be the problem that it is in America. This is Robert Reich, former Labor Secretary. Inequality would not be the problem it is in America if upward mobility were stronger. And he made that important connection. Yes, we have inequality, but we're also suffering a lack of strong upward mobility, particularly for people whose parents started them out in life in the bottom economic quintiles of the income distribution. It is very, very difficult, and research from places as wide-ranging as the Brookings Institution and the Pew Charitable Trusts have pointed this out. It's exceedingly difficult now for someone born in the bottom of the income distribution to rise above the bottom or the second quintile of the income distribution by the time they are adults. In other words, there's stickiness at the bottom of the income distribution, and that's due in significant measure to a lack of vigorous upward mobility in American society. That's a serious problem. The lack of upward mobility is synonymous or is a contradiction of what we mean by the American dream. The American dream is the hope and expectation that I will be better off financially than my parents were. Well, that's increasingly not the case, particularly for folks at the bottom. There's been some other revealing research as well that says opportunity is not evenly distributed across the geography of the United States. That opportunity to rise and mobility, the fact that people actually can rise from a place better than the economic circumstances of their birth, that that opportunity and mobility vary across the United States. And if any of you woke up as I did one day in July and saw the cover of the New York Times, there was a map of the United States, and a significant portion of the country, particularly the South and the Southwest, was blood red, indicating that the opportunity to rise from the bottom 20% of the income distribution in that significant swath of America, to rise from that to the top 20% was exceedingly low. So unfortunately, if the American dream is about the fact that where you grow up, the circumstances and geography in which you grow up shouldn't matter, and shouldn't determine where you end up, we have, again, another serious problem. Place matters more than it should in whether or not people have a chance, through hard work and education, to rise beyond the circumstances of their birth. I mention that, the fact that mobility is a problem overall and that place matters a great deal, because we as community colleges are place-based institutions. And if the places where we work don't have an active infrastructure of opportunity that's working to lift people from the bottom 20% up, then we have a place-based problem. The last fact I just want to leave you with is there's overwhelming data, and we know this, but it's quite powerful, that for young people born into the bottom 20 or the bottom 40% of the income distribution, that they are far more likely to stay in the bottom 20 or 40% if they lack a post-secondary credential. Education is a critical part of the infrastructure of upward mobility. But as we know, and as data are increasingly telling us, the power of education really matters only if a certificate or degree is completed, a post-secondary credential is completed. Completion matters greatly to whether or not the engines of upward mobility work. So I want to leave us and leave the panel with this question, which we're going to discuss. With so much at stake, with the American dream at stake, with so many people frozen at the bottom 20 or 40% of the income distribution, what have we in Achieving the Dream and in community colleges learned about what it takes to catalyze upward mobility for students who start out at the low end of the income distribution? What have we learned? And if mobility rests on a combination of personal drive, and we're going to hear from Lauranje, who certainly has personal drive, a combination of personal drive, deliberately and consistently supportive institutional practice and policy, and strong community support, how can we make sure that all of those contributory factors, student drive, deliberately supportive institutional practice and policy, and strong community infrastructure, how can we make sure all of those factors work in an aligned way to contribute to the possibility of upward mobility for people who are born farthest from the American dream? So what can we do, and how can we combine student energy, institutional policy and practice, and community infrastructure to make sure the American dream is once again a reality, particularly for people born farthest from it? That's the simple question we're going to try to answer today. And, you know, if we can get out of here with that answered, you know, we can just go play in Disney World and the problems of America will be solved. We've got a perfect panel to get this done, and we're going to hear them talk. I want to begin with our exemplar here, Lauranje Teague. You've heard that he is well on the path of upward mobility. And Lauranje, we'd love for you to share the factors that you think made the biggest difference in your being able to be where you are today and on the wonderful path that you're on. So would you get us started, Lauranje? Thank you. You can stay there or you can get up. Get to the podium. That's great. Love it. Perfect.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First off, I want to start off by saying, as he introduced, my name is Laurent J. Teague, and I'm a Valencia graduate. And it's truly my honor to be here speaking in front of you all today. I want to give thanks to the entire Achieve the Dream program and everyone who made it possible for me to be here this morning. I would like to give you all a little bio of myself and where I come from. I grew up here in Orlando, Florida, in a very poor neighborhood where I was trapped with poverty. In that neighborhood, I was surrounded by drugs and violence. I was raised by a single mother, keyword single mother, meaning no dad was ever around. And as you all know, there's only so much a mother can do to raise a man. So for those very important factors that were left out, I had to go out and get them on my own. As growing up, I soon to lose my favorite cousin to guns and violence. The day I lost him, he was within arm reach of me, where I can reach out and touch him. From that moment on, it added to the pain, the suffer, the hurt. It created very traumatizing events for me that later caused me to not be able to focus as I would like to in school. Even though all these circumstances took place, I was still able to receive good grades. And I guess that's why I'm here today, to tell you all, because of all my circumstances. Because of everything that I went through, with the help of Valencia College, in particular Bridges to Success program, I was able to still defeat the odds. I was able to still exceed the expected. I was able to still not only achieve the dream, but continue achieving the dream. Today I would like to share with you all, for Bridges to Success, which is one of the most important programs that I've ever been exposed to, this program itself allowed me to see better days. This program created a certain culture for me of love, happiness, and at home. With the Bridges program, that sense of comfort that may have never been there in the past have finally arrived. All the Bridges advisors was well connected with myself. So I knew, because of the connection we had, and they was all concerned about me and my education, every day I went into that Bridges office, there was gonna be someone concerned about me and my education. No matter what time of the day I went, maybe 1 or 2 was at lunch, but there's no way possible all of them was gonna be gone at the same time. So there was that question every time I walk in the office: how your grades doing, Laurent J? How was that test you took the other day? How's your classes going? And just that small tactic there allowed me the certain amount of motivation and inspiration I had needed to do the best I can do in my classes, because I had something small I could hold on to and a sense of responsibility, because I knew every time I walked in that Bridges office, that question was gonna come. And I had to have a great answer for them. I couldn't lie. The computers were right there, they can look it up. So I had to tell the truth, and that truth had to be good enough to put a smile on all those advisors' face. That small tactic right there is what gave me enough motivation to know that success was no longer an option for me. At that moment, it began to be my destiny. Even if I didn't want to be successful, I don't have a choice. It's too much problems in my... It's too many problems in my past to look back and go and solve. So at this moment, I have no choice but to continue moving forward. Yes, I'm aware that with the path I have chose, there will be many roadblocks, many struggles, many hard times, many things to defeat me. But one thing I also know, that I have trained my mind to think as there's a brick wall that lie behind me. Each time I move forward or take a step forward, that wall follow me. So no matter how hard times may get, one thing I can never do is turn around and quit. I have trained my mind to look at quitting as an option that I only had once in a lifetime to choose, and if I didn't choose it at one time, it had expired. With that being said, quitting is no longer an option. So I want to leave you all with this before I leave from here this morning. I would like to remind you all that because of all your perseverance, hard work, and sacrifices that you all invested into students like myself, you made it possible for us as a whole, speaking upon for millions of students like myself, to exceed the expected. So with that in mind, I would like to say thank you for creating opportunities for each and every one of us to achieve a dream. So once you leave today, you can go home tonight and sleep well, knowing that each and every inch of all your hard work is dearly appreciated by myself and millions of other students that you all have paved the way and created opportunities for, that without you all, those opportunities may have never been visible. Thank you.
Thank you. So you want to stay here? I'll call on you right here.
Thank you so much.
Wow. I hope the White House is listening, because maybe we have the next president here. Maybe you heard him give his first speech. That was something. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, James Comer, it's going to take a learned professor to follow a speech like that. And I'm wondering, as you listen to that remarkable analysis and testimony of Lauranje, thinking about your own work in terms of the factors that contribute to success and forward movement, what echoes of what you know have you heard in Laurange's story? If you'd stay here, then we can have a little. Would you mind sitting here?
Oh, well, okay.
That would be
Sit
great.
here, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
What echoes do you hear in Laurange's story about personal perseverance, but also about institutional supports and other similar factors?
Very important, and I want to say I hope I live long enough to vote for Lauranje. His story and my story has some parallels and very similar kinds of things. I'm from a low-income family. My mother was a domestic. My father was a steel mill laborer. And what I heard was that while things have changed, you have a bridges program to support you somewhat. The issues are still the same. The question of whether I belong, whether I have a right to be here, the concern about changing your course and leaving others behind, and all of those things are still there, and young people are struggling with them, and they stand to create problems for them as they go forth. When I went to school, Indiana University in 1952, which was Southern Indiana, the racial issues were still very hot. And I went from high school, where did well, to college, where all of a sudden I was confronted with all kinds of issues, and made that first year all C's. And back the second year, after support from the community, I still wasn't sure that I had a right to be there, that I belonged. And in a zoology course, which was the flunk-out course for medical students, I made, on the first test, I made the lowest score in the room. And there were no African-American faculty or others, and this young white laboratory assistant came. He had talked to me a couple times, and he came and he sat down next to me, looked right at me, and he said, you know, I've talked to you. I know you can do this work, and I expect you to do this work. The next exam, he brought my paper back himself, and he was smiling, and he sat down. I had made the highest score in the room the second time. And my point is that it was the institution speaking to me. I didn't understand at the time, it was just my laboratory assistant, but it was the institution speaking to me, saying, the rumor is wrong, you're able, you have a right to be here, you belong, and we expect you to perform well. It was that message, and that's the message I want to leave with all of us, is that there are many students out there with that question in their mind, and that it is our responsibility as an institution to reach out, because there is a disparity of power. We don't think of ourselves as powerful people and intimidating people or intimidating places even, but the institution that poor kids walk into is intimidating, and the people are intimidating, and you have to extend yourself in a way that says, we expect you to perform well, and that you're able to perform well. And that made all the difference in the world. I've often thought about, where is that young man today? Because I might have had a very different outcome in life had it not been for one person taking the time to say, you can. And so that's very important. And I think the sincerity of Laranje's thanks to everybody really is a reflection of that understanding that that all of you reaching out to students really makes that difference and allows. It's what turned me loose. It's what freed me. It's what made it possible for me to go on and succeed.
So both you and Laranje have said that the sense, an intentional message coming to you saying, this is your home, you belong here, you can succeed.
Right.
Success is possible, and we exist to help you translate your drive and energy into the success you deserve and are capable of is a common theme here. So personal drive plus deliberate institutional practice are two of the critical elements, it sounds like, in your collective story. Would either of you like to say any more about just, again, what higher education, particularly the community college, perhaps in your case, Laranje, actually did to make you have that sense of feeling? You talk about the office that you went to every day. You talk about the daily presence of someone who was checking in and asking for you. Perhaps you both could just talk about what often we've talked about, the intrusiveness of deep support and encouragement that needs to enter every student's life to have these kind of outcomes, a professor and a future president. I mean, it's pretty good. Talk a little more about what the ingredients were that the college, in both of your cases, did, so we can see a little more the things that really helped you move up on your trajectory.
Absolutely. Valencia itself, it created opportunities for those that may have had a certain level of insecurity, not feel at home, not feel welcome, was even unsure if college was even for them. If you was unsure, Valencia made you sure. Valencia created many networking opportunities, many positions for work studies, many students to develop themselves, many students pathways to get involved into different programs to help them become better students. Valencia offered an amazing amount of tutors, individuals that sacrifice day in and day out for the student's success, individuals that make sure that the students are being successful. Particularly for Bridges, it was requirements as of community service, skill shops, workshops, tutoring sessions. All of those was requirements that may have been hindering to some students, but those students that it was hindering to was those very few amount of students that was unable to realize and unable to identify the purpose of it. Something that was lost within our students is the fact that those advisors and bridges that required us to do all these community services, they had received their degrees already. All that hard work was for us. The opportunity was there, but it was up to us as the students to take advantage of it. Each and every one of those opportunities that was given to me by Bridges, I thank God today that I took advantage of them, because without that, I wouldn't be the man I am today.
Yeah. I think in 1952, colleges and universities didn't operate that way. You know, you'd either made it or you were out. What's important here is that the individual faculty member took it upon himself to sincerely express his interest in me. And I want to emphasize sincerity, because there are a lot of phony things that happen also, and phony comments that are made. It is the sincerity, it was his belief, it was his hope that made a difference for me and other faculty members that I ran into, although I ran into the opposite also, but it was the caring people, sincerely caring people, that made me feel at home, made me feel that I could perform and I had a right to be there. And I want to emphasize that, because while programs are very important, it's the everyday professor and faculty member, instructor, conveying interest and concern that really makes a difference also, that creates that good feeling and good place for you.
I want to turn now a little to talking about, we've touched on the importance of the daily decisions of people inside the college to intentionally make every student know that he or she belongs and can be successful, which is a powerful statement. Laronje also talked about the Bridges program opening up some wider understanding of the community. And I want to now turn to the community connection in all this, because if we're thinking about mobility, that really means people being able to be connected to the opportunities that exist in a wider society. I know, Dr. Comer, you've written a lot about the importance of a community infrastructure needing to be supportive. And Melissa, I know that at Trident, and I want to get you into this conversation now, there's a deep intentionality about making bridges between the college and employers and the broader community, so that that infrastructure of opportunity is really available to students. Can you talk about the way in which you at Trident are almost taking down the walls of the college to make sure there is a seamlessness between the opportunities the college is preparing students for and the opportunities that the community and the economy are offering to people who are prepared? Can you talk a bit about that?
Absolutely. One of the things we recognize is that community colleges do a phenomenal job. Once we get that student in the door, in building those kinds of relationships and programs like the Bridges for Success program, in touching those students. But community colleges cannot do this work alone. You know, the problem that we have is a societal problem. There's no doubt that it starts from the time the child is born until actually before they're born with prenatal care, all the way through a continuum till they get into the workforce. And so Trident Technical College has become very invested in looking not only at the internal relationships with our students and with our colleagues, but at the external relationships we can build so that we can meet a greater need and really move the masses forward in a more productive way. 18 years ago, our president, who is unable to be here this morning, I'm sorry to say, had the idea that we really needed to get into the high schools more. You know, we all know we've been segmented for years, and it's become nationwide an area where we end up pointing fingers at each other. we say, oh, if they would only do their job and send us students who were ready, then we could. And the high school looks at the middle school and say, oh, if they would only send us students who were ready, if they would only do their job. So the Office of High School Programs was created, and it was my role to go out and create and build strategic relationships with the schools. And in doing that, in learning their culture and learning what they were doing, what I discovered was it isn't about the fact that they're not doing really great work. They are. They have wonderful programs out there, but it's a lack of alignment. We've been in silos for so many years that we haven't been working together. But beyond that, we recognized it's not just about the K-12 system and the post-secondary system. It's about business and industry, who's pointing fingers at everyone else too. And so over the years, my role at the college in terms of working with the high schools to build these partnerships has morphed into my being engaged with chambers of commerce and philanthropic organizations and foundations that fund major initiatives, with business and industry building youth apprenticeship programs. And those kinds of strategic partnerships have enabled us to start collaborating in a way that has moved what we do much further along the spectrum in a seamless kind of way. And that's been really, really exciting. Most recently, and the most exciting piece I've been engaged in, is a new initiative in our region to move from isolated impact, where we're each doing individual activities that are really good, to a collective impact system, where all of the stakeholders, all of your four-year institutions, your research universities, your community college, your K-12 system, business and industry, philanthropic organizations, nonprofit organizations, religious affiliations, governments have all joined together to look at how can we align our efforts in such a strategic way, from prenatal care all the way through to career incentives, so that we are seriously invested in making sure that every part of that continuum succeeds, so that everything succeeds and moves forward in a productive way. That's been really exciting.
So an aligned approach to building that infrastructure of opportunity is important.
Essential.
And community colleges, this is a premise of this conversation, occupy a critical place in that infrastructure.
I believe they can serve as the catalyst to get it going. Engage in your communities, get everybody to the table, talk about the issues. So it means building really strong relationships where you can have absolute trust, because the next piece of that is you really have to be invested in data, because all of the decisions you need to make are data-driven decisions, and this is the scary part for folks. You have to be willing, completely willing, to take all of the data across the entire continuum from every sector and put it out there in front of everyone. As my president likes to say, you need to be willing to strip yourself naked and stand in front of the other and let them look at it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because until we address the good, the bad, and the ugly collectively, we can't move the needle forward for the masses.
Thank you. So, the strip naked got some buzz here. I don't know what that's about, but anyway. This is being recorded and it's a family panel. Just, control yourselves. Roberto, you've now had a chance to listen to a great young American, a great American scholar, a wonderful community college leader, and you're thinking about this challenge at scale, because as we said, there are significant segments of the American population who are stuck at the bottom of the income distribution and need all of the things we've been talking about to move forward. What is your reaction and response to what you've heard in terms of what it might affirm, and then what additional challenges you might put out to us as we think about this re-engineering of the pathways of opportunity?
Yes. Well, thanks, David. You know, I love this conversation. I just have to say, it's terrific to be here. Laranjay, thank you for grounding us this morning in your experience, because the president is concerned with you and with the thousands of young people like you around the country that really need the opportunity that our community colleges can provide to be that catalyst, to be that ladder of opportunity upward into the middle class. And I think I'm just struck by, particularly by what you've shared about your own journey here, and that this is really a two-way street. I mean, you clearly have taken the initiative as an individual to understand and seize the opportunity that Valencia Community College has provided through this program. But we have a responsibility, and I know all of you recognize this as practitioners out there in the field. We have a responsibility to institutionalize the support through programs like the program you described, to reach even more of our adults and our young learners as they come into community colleges. We have the responsibility to make sure that we are instilling a culture and a tenor of success and persistence. You mentioned, David, that completion matters. You know, we have seen a 50% increase in enrollment at our post-secondary institutions over the past 3 decades. But we still are failing to ensure persistence and attainment for too many of our young people and adults who enter our institutions. So that is our collective challenge. That is the challenge that the president has focused us on early in his administration. You know, he's set out a North Star goal, we like to call it, to lead the world with the highest proportion of individuals who are completing a degree, a credential, who are persisting and completing by 2020. And he's done that because we know that today, more than at any time in our history, attainment of that post-secondary education matters. It matters for our workforce. We have over 6 out of 10 new jobs moving forward that are going to require some type of post-secondary education or credential. So it is the essence of that mobility, it's the first rung, if you will, on that ladder of opportunity. And you grounded us, David, in mobility and in opportunity in this morning, and that is precisely what the president is focused on. It's what he focused his State of the Union message on this year, providing a great living wage to every American, making sure that we are growing our workforce and great jobs, that we have the training and the education that we need, and that we develop a world-class education system from cradle all the way through career. And so we have been squarely focused at the president's direction, particularly in making sure that we are engaging and supporting our institutions of higher education in that effort. And you know, from day one, the president, Vice President Biden, Dr. Biden, as a community college instructor herself, has recognized our community colleges as being one of the most important catalysts in our higher education system toward that end. You know, in our communities across the country, you know, whether it's someone who's graduating from high school, whether it's that adult who's returning for basic education, reskilling and training, our community colleges are that entry point into that higher education system, that post-secondary opportunity. We need to do more at the federal level to make sure that we have support to make sure that our students are successful. So this is why you know, the president has done a lot to grow our Pell Grant, to do more to support community college training programs through our Department of Labor. But it's also why we convened last month, he and the First Lady, a conversation, a national conversation, with college presidents and a number of you here in this room at the community college level to talk about what we can do to instill an all-hands-on-deck effort to support the success of our students in persisting through toward credential and degree attainment, and particularly for our low-income and first-generation students. This is not a Republican or Democratic agenda. This is an agenda about making sure that we are lifting up ladders of opportunity for more of our young people and adults. And I'm really proud to be here today amongst this network of change makers in our community college system that are making that happen. And we saw some great commitments come out of last month's convening thanks to Achieving the Dream. I want to acknowledge Carol and Bill and all of the great work that they organized in helping us focus particularly on one challenge within our community college sector, which is developmental education and what we can do to better reform and support acceleration, contextualization, grounding more of our DevEd courses in career-relevant, occupational-relevant experiences that we know will help our students at our community colleges get ahead. So I'm pleased to be here, and I came here expressly to ask all of you who are already doing great work on this to join us in doing even more. We want to grow that list out there in the lobby of institutions who are committing to doing more to support the types of success strategies that we heard about today, and doing more to reshape and reform and support developmental education. And we will be working with the Achieving the Dream Network as a core partner on this effort. And I am looking forward to welcoming even more of you back to the White House at some point in the future to talk about what more we can do as a collective to support this work.
Thank you. Thank you. Get Larange back and he can see his future home. That would be a nice
right.
thing.
Show 'em around.
We're on the cusp of closing, so I want to give each of you an opportunity to say, I think we've said mobility and opportunity matter greatly. We have an important role as community colleges to contribute to the re-engineering of the pathways of opportunity that can help people move from a starting place that's too far away from the American dream to a reality that is closer to that dream. And that by being intentional and relational and aligned and committed and creative, there's much within our power that we're already doing and can do more of. So as a closing comment, I would just like to ask each of you, what do you think community colleges need to be doing more of, and you can throw in what do we need to be doing less of as well, in order to play more effectively that leadership, that contributory leadership role in the national campaign to increase upward mobility? What do community colleges need to be doing more of? Say less of too, you always take something away. More of, and what do community colleges need to be doing less of to play the leadership role that we're called to play in the great rebuilding of the mobility infrastructure? Anybody can go first. More of, less of.
Okay, I guess I'll go first.
All right, I love that.
I'm pretty sure you all heard a lot about equity and success. To elaborate on what you said with the mobility of moving individuals, first off, I think it needs to be identified and addressed to create more equity within the community colleges. Take away that defined line to separate individuals from others. Create a certain environment for all of us as students to feel equal to one another. Take away that separation that may still have just a minor piece of insecurity the feeling of I'm not supposed to be here, or they would not accept me here. If you want the mobility to come together, you must address equity and understand that we all are equal as students up under the same bracket of each and every one of you college presidents. With the mobility to be possible, equity has to be addressed first. Once equity is addressed, many more students are more delighted and more comfortable. And as we all know, once the comfort is there, the delightment, all the hard work and dedication, we're more prone to reach success. So again, if mobility is our goal, I think it's a demand that we do not forget equity to succeed our success.
Wow.
Melissa spoke about reaching out into schools and places in the community. I think that is very important. There's one thing I want to call to your attention. The language of the community college talks about developmental and developmental education in community colleges means one thing. Development means something else from my perspective. And my perspective, I think, is what you're going to need when you start reaching out into communities and thinking about young people. When I talk about development, and you see a person like Laronje is unusual, but there are many young people who are simply underdeveloped in their language pathways, their social emotional, their ability to express themselves, their ability to take on tasks and commit themselves to it and follow through, executive function skills, we call it. Those are the things that you need to think about for all children, young people. And remember, most of us, many of us, come from backgrounds, middle-class backgrounds, mainstream backgrounds. There are many things we assume that young people know and are able to do, when often they aren't. Some of us learn to play the game. I still remember when my chair asked me how he wanted the TIAA CREF divided. And since I didn't know what TIAA CREF was about, I said 50-50. Well, that turned out to be the best business decision I ever made. But the fact is, I didn't know what I was talking about. And my point is that there are social skills, there are experiences that non-mainstream people have that you have to think about, and you have to help them gain the capacity to manage and feel, because that's what allows people to feel comfortable in a mainstream setting. So thinking about development from the psycho-emotional, the moral, ethical, linguistic, although the developmental pathways of young people and how we help them grow along those pathways is what I encourage you to do.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I would say that every one of our institutions has a plan, and they are excellent plans. But our communities don't have master plans for the whole spectrum. We don't need to abandon the plans we have, but we need to serve as the catalysts for going into the community and helping to develop a master plan that starts with prenatal care for every child and takes them all the way to career placement. Because until you leverage all of those entities, we are going to make small dents in the major populations issue. And we want to make social change in a really productive way. And so I would encourage you to go out and build those partnerships and take your data and strip yourselves naked.
You heard it here, Roberto.
Well, you know, I'd share a couple of things. The first is to dedicate institutional resources to starting early. Our young people need to know that there is a post-secondary education pathway for them, and they need to know it early. And that requires real skin in the game at each institution, getting into local communities and partnering, rolling up their sleeves with superintendents and principals and others to get that work done. The second thing is to clear those pathways, because they're far too murky and too often they are an obstacle course that we are asking young people to clear as they come into the system. You know, whether that is a pathway into direct career training and a job, you know, once they graduate and complete, whether that's a pathway into a 2+2 program and into a 4-year degree granting institution, whether that's a pathway into developmental education, because we're not where we need to be as a country around high school preparation for our young people. So we will continue to spend, you know, tens of millions of dollars on developmental education, and we need to be sure that that path is cleared directly into credit-bearing coursework and a degree. You know, we have to make it seamless for our young people as they come into our institutions to have that path toward that degree attainment and toward future education opportunity, learning, and job success. That has to be a clear pathway individually for every single young person that comes through that door.
Thank you all. Would you please join me in thanking these wonderful They've given us a lot to chew on. I hope you take the wisdom we've heard to heart and have been inspired to learn and do. We are, Carol, I believe, adjourned. Thanks again to the panel, and on to your break and your next sessions.